was a cold day. A very cold Tuesday. The rain was falling hard against the glass windows. It was the kind of rain that chills you to the bone. Inside the coffee shop, it was warm. It smelled like roasted beans and sweet sugar. The shop was called the Gilded Cup. It was a place for rich people, people in expensive suits, people with shiny shoes, people who did not worry about the price of a cup of tea. Then, the door opened. A small bell rang. Ding! But nobody looked up with a smile. Arthur stepped inside. Arthur was 84 years old. His coat was gray. It was too big for him. It was full of patches and holes. Water dripped from his hat onto the clean floor. Drip, drip, drip. He was shaking, not just from the cold, but from age. His hands trembled like dry leaves in the wind. Arthur did not want trouble. He only wanted warmth. He walked to the counter very slowly, step by step. His old shoes made a squeaking sound. The waitress was named Clara. She was young. She was pretty. But her eyes were cold. She was texting on her phone. She did not look up. Arthur cleared his throat. "Excuse me, miss," he whispered. Clara sighed loudly. She looked at him with disgust. She looked at his wet coat. She looked at his muddy shoes. She wrinkled her nose. "What do you want?" she asked. "We don't give out free food here." Arthur shrank back. He felt small. I have money," Arthur said softly. "I would like a small coffee, please, the cheapest one." Clara rolled her eyes. "That will be $5, she snapped. $5 was nothing to the other customers, but for Arthur, $5 was everything. He reached into his pocket. His shaking hand pulled out a small plastic bag. Inside were pennies, nickels, old coins. He began to count them on the counter. Clink, clink, clink. 1, he counted. 2. His fingers were stiff with arthritis. He was so slow, so very slow. Behind him, a man in a suit sighed. "Hurry up, old man," someone muttered. Arthur began to sweat. He was trying his best. "Just a moment," Arthur whispered. "I am almost there." Suddenly, Clara slammed her hand on the counter. Bang! The whole shop went silent. Everyone looked. Clara was angry. "You smell like a wet dog," she shouted. "You are disturbing my customers." Arthur froze. He looked up at her with watery eyes. I'm sorry," he said. Then Clara did something unforgivable. With a cruel swipe of her hand, she hit the pile of coins. Crash! The coins flew into the air. They scattered all over the floor, rolling under tables, rolling under chairs. Arthur stood there, shocked. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. His face turned red with shame. Slowly, painfully, Arthur got down on his knees. His old joints cracked. He crawled on the floor. He began to pick up the pennies, one by one. "Please," Arthur whispered to the floor, "I just need a coffee." Clara stood over him. She laughed, a cruel, cold laugh. "Leave it," she said. "Get out before I call the police." Arthur was on his hands and knees, crying softly. Nobody helped him. Nobody moved. The coffee shop was silent. dead silent. The only sound was Arthur's breathing. He was still on the floor. His knees hurt. His dignity was broken. Clara stood over him with her arms crossed. She looked like a giant. He looked like an ant. "I said, get out," Clara hissed. She reached out to grab his old coat. She was going to drag him. Suddenly, scrape! A chair moved. It was a sharp sound against the floor. Everyone turned to look. In the corner of the room, at the best table, a woman stood up. Her name was Sophie. Sophie was in her 30s. She wore a sharp navy blue business suit. Her hair was perfect. Her shoes were expensive. She looked like someone important. She looked like a queen. But her eyes were burning with fire. Click, click, click. The sound of her heels on the floor echoed. She walked slowly toward the counter. She did not rush. She walked with power. Clara froze. Her hand stopped in midair above Arthur's coat. She saw Sophie approaching. Clara knew rich customers. She knew she had to be polite to them. Clara put on a fake smile. "Oh, hello, ma'am," Clara said sweetly. "I am so sorry about this trash on the floor. I will remove him." "Do not," Sophie interrupted. Her voice was not loud, but it was heavy. It filled the room. "Do not touch him." Clara blinked. "Excuse me?" Sophie ignored her. Warmly, Sophie knelt down, right there on the dirty floor, in her expensive suit. She did not care about the mud. She did not care about the coffee stains. She looked at Arthur. Arthur was shaking. He was terrified. He thought she was going to yell too. But Sophie smiled. It was a gentle smile, like the sun coming out after a storm. Softly, "Sir," she whispered, "are you hurt?" Arthur looked up. Tears streamed down his wrinkled cheeks. "I'm just clumsy," Arthur stammered. "I made a mess." Sophie shook her head. "No," she said, "you did nothing wrong." Sophie reached out her hand. Her skin was smooth. His skin was rough. She took his trembling hand in hers. She did not pull away from his dirt. She held him tight. "Let me help you up," she said. Slowly, carefully, she helped the old man stand. She dusted off his coat with her own hands. Tension. Then Sophie turned to Clara. The warmth vanished from her face. Her eyes turned to ice. Clara took a step back. She felt small now. "You," Sophie began, "you have no heart." Clara stuttered. But ma'am, he couldn't pay. He's a beggar." "He is a human being," Sophie said, "and he is my guest." The room gasped. Sophie took Arthur's arm gently. "Come with me, sir." She led him away from the counter. She did not take him to the door. She took him to her table, the VIP table by the window, the one with the comfortable leather chairs. She pulled out the chair for him. "Please," she said, "sit." Arthur sat down slowly. He had never sat in a chair like this. It was soft. He felt safe. Sophie sat opposite him. She raised her hand. She snapped her fingers at Clara. Snap. "Waitress," Sophie called out, "bring us the menu." Clara's face turned red. She was furious, but she could not say no to a rich woman in a suit. Clara walked over. She slammed the menu on the table. Sophie looked at the menu calmly. She looked at Arthur. "What would you like, sir?" she asked. "You can have anything." Arthur looked at the prices. His eyes widened. "Oh no," he whispered. "It is too much. Just water is fine." Sophie smiled. She looked at Clara. "We will have the large breakfast platter," Sophie ordered, "with extra sausages, and eggs, and toast, and your biggest, hottest coffee. and a slice of chocolate cake. Clara's jaw dropped. For him? Clara asked. Yes, Sophie said, and if it is not perfect, I will speak to the owner. Now go. Clara turned around fast. She marched to the kitchen. She was defeated. Arthur looked at Sophie. He did not understand. Why was this stranger being so kind? Why? Arthur asked. Why are you doing this? Sophie just smiled softly, but she did not answer yet. The food arrived. It was a feast. Steaming eggs, hot sausages, thick toast with butter. Clara placed the plates down. She did not slam them this time. She was afraid of Sophie. Clara walked away quickly, leaving them alone in their own small world. Arthur stared at the food. His stomach growled, a loud, sad sound. He had not eaten a hot meal in 2 days, maybe 3. He looked at Sophie, waiting for permission. Sophie nodded gently. "Eat, Arthur," she whispered. "It is all yours." Arthur picked up his fork. His hands were shaking so bad. Clink, clink. The fork hit the plate. He struggled to cut a sausage. He was embarrassed. He thought he looked like a child. But Sophie did not look away. She did not check her phone. She sat still, watching him with deep respect. She saw a man who had survived a hard life. Arthur took a bite, then another, then another. Color began to come back to his pale face. He closed his eyes as he chewed. "Thank you," he whispered. "You are an angel." Then it happened. Arthur reached for his glass of water. He stretched his arm across the table. His old gray coat was loose. As he reached, the sleeve of his coat slid back just a few inches. It revealed his thin, fragile wrist. And on his wrist was a watch. It was not a smartwatch. It was not gold. It was not shiny. It was old, very, very old. The leather strap was worn out. It was almost breaking. The glass face was cracked right down the middle. It looked like a piece of junk, but Arthur wore it tightly. Sophie was raising her coffee cup to her lips. Her eyes fell on the watch. She froze, completely froze. The cup stopped in midair. Her eyes went wide. Her breath hitched in her throat. Gasp. She stared at the watch. She did not blink. The world around her disappeared. The noise of the coffee shop faded away. All she could see was that old, cracked watch. Her heart began to pound. Thump, 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 thump. She knew that watch. She had seen it before. But where? No, it couldn't be. It was impossible. Trembling, Sophie put her cup down slowly. Her hand was shaking now, just like Arthur's. Arthur noticed her staring. He stopped eating. He saw her looking at his wrist. Panic flashed in his eyes. Quickly, instinctively, Arthur pulled his arm back. He yanked his sleeve down to cover the watch. He covered it with his other hand, protecting it, hiding it. "Arthur," Sophie whispered. Her voice was barely audible. "That watch?" Arthur shook his head. He looked scared. "It is nothing," he said quickly. "Just an old thing. Broken. Worthless." He tried to smile, but the smile was fake. Intensity leaned forward. "May I see it?" she asked. "Please?" Arthur pulled back further. He pressed his arm against his chest. "No," he said firmly. I cannot take it off. I never take it off." Sophie stared at him. She was searching his face, looking for a ghost. "Why?" she asked. "Why is it so special?" Arthur looked down at his plate. His eyes filled with tears again. He rubbed his thumb over the sleeve covering the watch. "Because," Arthur whispered, "it is the only thing I have left. It is a promise from a life I lost a long time ago." Sophie sat back. She felt like she was going to cry. She needed to know. She had to know. Tell me, she said softly. Tell me about the life you lost. Arthur took a deep breath. He looked out the window at the rain. But he did not see the rain. He saw the past. The noise of the coffee shop faded away completely. It was just Arthur and his memories. I was not always like this, Arthur whispered. I was not always a beggar. He touched the cracked glass of the watch. 50 years ago, I was a strong man. I was a carpenter. I built houses with these hands. He held up his shaking, spotted hands. They were strong hands then. And I had Martha. Arthur smiled. It was a painful, beautiful smile. Martha was my wife. She was small, and she had a laugh that sounded like bells. We did not have much money, but we were happy. We had a small house with a blue door, and we had a son. Arthur's voice broke. He looked down at the table. His name was Thomas. He was a good boy. He had his mother's eyes, but I was a hard father. I was strict. I wanted him to be strong. I pushed him too hard. Arthur closed his eyes. A tear rolled down his cheek. It got caught in his gray beard. One night, it was Christmas Eve, 1974. We fought. I yelled at him. I said things, terrible things. I told him to leave if he didn't like my rules. And he did. He packed a bag, and he walked out the blue door. I stood there. I was too proud to stop him. I thought, he will be back in the morning. He will get hungry and come back. But the morning came, and the bed was empty. The week passed. A month. A year. He never came back. Arthur stroked the watch strap gently. Martha, my sweet Martha. She never forgave me. Not really. She sat by the window every day, watching the road, waiting for Thomas. She stopped eating. She stopped laughing. Her heart, it just broke on our anniversary. Before she got very sick, she gave me this watch. She bought it with the money she saved for a new dress. She put it on my wrist, and she made me promise. She said, Arthur, wear this watch. If Thomas ever comes back, if I am gone, he will know it is you by the watch. Promise me you will wait for him. Arthur wiped his eyes with a dirty napkin. I promised. And then she died. I was alone, truly alone. I lost the job because I was too sad to work. I lost the house with the blue door. I lost everything, except the watch. Years passed. 10 years. 20 years. 30 years. I became an old man. I became a beggar. People walk past me. They look at me like I'm trash, like that waitress did today. They don't know that I am a father. They don't know that I am waiting. Arthur looked at Sophie. His eyes were intense. I sleep on the streets. I am hungry. I am cold. I could have sold this watch. It is a good brand. I could have bought food. I could have bought a warm coat. But I never took it off. Not even for one day. Because I promised Martha. And because maybe, just maybe, Thomas is still out there, and if he sees me, he will remember." Arthur went silent. He looked down at the cracked face of the watch. It ticked slowly. Tick, 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 counting the seconds of a wasted life. Sophie was crying. Silent tears ran down her face. She knew the story was true, because she knew the ending. Sophie wiped her face. Her mascara was running, but she did not care. She looked at Arthur. She looked at his gray hair. She looked at his kind, sad eyes. She reached into her purse. Her hand was shaking. She pulled out a small tissue and an old photograph. She placed the photograph face down on the table. She covered it with her hand. "Arthur," she said, "I need you to do something for me." Arthur looked at her. "Anything," he whispered. "You gave me food. You gave me respect." Trembling, Sophie pointed to the watch on his wrist. "Take it off," she said. Arthur pulled back. Fear returned to his eyes. "No," he said. "I told you, I cannot." "Please," Sophie begged. "I'm not going to steal it. I just need you to turn it over. I need you to look at the back of the metal case." Arthur hesitated. The room felt very heavy. Slowly, with trembling fingers, Arthur undid the old leather strap. It was stiff. He took the watch off his wrist. His skin underneath was pale. There was a mark where the watch had been for 50 years. He held the watch in his palm. "Turn it over," Sophie whispered. Arthur shook his head. "There is nothing there," he said. "Just scratches." "No," Sophie said. "There is an inscription. There are words." Arthur frowned. How could you know that?" Sophie took a deep breath. She looked right into Arthur's soul. She began to speak, but she was not asking. She was reciting. "To Arthur," Sophie said. Arthur froze. "My North Star. Love, Martha, 1974. Arthur dropped the watch. Clatter. It hit the table. He stared at Sophie. His mouth opened. He could not breathe. He picked up the watch quickly. He turned it over. He squinted his old eyes. He rubbed the dirt away with his thumb. There, faintly etched into the metal, were the words, "To Arthur, my North Star." Arthur began to weep, a loud, painful sob. "How?" he cried. "How do you know this? Nobody knew this. Only Martha. Are you a ghost?" Sophie shook her head. She lifted her hand from the photograph on the table. She slid it towards him. "Look," she whispered. Arthur looked at the photograph. It was black and white. It was a picture of a young man standing in front of a house with a blue door. He was holding a hammer. He was smiling. Arthur gasped. He touched the photograph with his dirty finger. "That is me," he whispered. "That is me 50 years ago." "Yes," Sophie said. "My father kept that photo on his bedside table every single day." Arthur looked up. Your father?" Sophie nodded. Tears streamed down her face. "My father's name was Thomas Arthur Miller." The world stopped spinning. Arthur grabbed the edge of the table. "Thomas?" he whispered. "My Thomas? You are—" "I'm Sophie," she said. "I'm your grandfather." "Where is he?" Arthur asked frantically. "Where is my boy? Is he coming?" Sophie reached across the table. She grabbed Arthur's hands. She squeezed them hard. She looked sad. "He wanted to come, Grandpa. He talked about you every day. He told me about the watch. He told me about the blue door. He regretted leaving every single day of his life. But," Sophie looked down, "he passed away last year. He got sick. Before he died, he made promise. He said, 'Find him, Sophie. Find the man with the broken watch and tell him I never stopped loving him.'" Arthur put his head in his hands. He cried, but for the first time in 50 years, they were not tears of loneliness. They were tears of release. The waiting was over. His boy was gone, but his boy had sent an angel. Sophie stood up. She did not care about the people watching. She walked around the table. She wrapped her arms around Arthur. She hugged him tight. Arthur smelled like rain and old clothes, but to Sophie, he smelled like family. "Come on, Grandpa," Sophie whispered into his ear. "Let's get you out of here. Let's get you home." Arthur looked up at her. "Home?" he asked weakly. "I don't have a home." Sophie smiled. She wiped a smudge of dirt from his forehead. "You do now," she said. "You are coming with me. I have a big house. There's a warm bed waiting for you. And I have so many stories to tell you about your son." Arthur stood up. He felt stronger. His legs were not shaking as much. He put his hand on Sophie's arm. He held his head high. He was not just an old beggar anymore. He was Arthur Miller. He was a father. He was a grandfather. Step, step, step. They walked toward the door. The coffee shop was deadly quiet. Clara, the rude waitress, was standing by the counter. Her face was pale. She had seen the hug. She had seen the tears. She knew she had made a terrible mistake. Sophie stopped right in front of Clara. Clara looked down. She was trembling. I'm sorry," Clara mumbled. I didn't know." Sophie looked at Clara with cold eyes. "You judged him because of his coat," Sophie said. "You judged him because he was poor. You thought he was nothing." Sophie paused. She looked at Arthur with pride. "But he is everything to me. This man is the reason I am alive." Sophie reached into her purse. She pulled out a $100 bill. She placed it on the counter. "This covers the breakfast," she said. "Keep the change. And next time, be kind. You never know who you are serving." Clara stood there, frozen in shame. Sophie opened the door. Ding! The cold wind blew in, but it did not feel cold anymore. A black luxury car was waiting outside. A driver opened the door for Arthur. Arthur looked back at the coffee shop one last time. He touched the watch on his wrist. "Thank you, Martha," he whispered to the sky. "I waited, and you kept your promise." Arthur got into the car. Sophie got in beside him. The door closed. Thud. The car drove away, leaving the cold, hard world behind. Arthur was finally safe. Arthur waited 50 years. He lost everything, but he never lost hope. He held on to that broken watch because it was a symbol of love. In our lives, we walk past people like Arthur every day. We see the old coat. We see the dirt. We turn our eyes away, just like Clara did. But remember this: every stranger has a story. Every beggar was once a child. Every lonely heart is waiting for someone to come home. If you saw Arthur sitting in the rain today, would you walk past him? Or would you stop? It costs nothing to be kind, but it can mean everything to the person who needs it. If this story touched your heart, if you believe in the power of patience and love, please like this video and consider subscribing to our channel. We tell stories that matter. Thank you for watching, and take care of each other.